sound.
Please find the laminated sheet in the service book. We will now sing the Vandana Pizarama, the three judges. Please rise. Please be seated. Please turn to page 39 in the service book, and we will now chant the You Say Yes. This morning, the Dharma message will be given by Frank Swithers.
Good morning, Koji. Please join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Welcome to everyone, especially our first time visitors. As Ed said, my name is Frank Swithers. I'm a member here at the temple. For those of you who didn't know, and also for those of you who didn't know, I had surgery on my right shoulder about 3 months ago. And my talk this morning is I called it Shin and the Art of Surgical Repair, kind of a takeoff on an old book that some of you may know of, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, about the travails of someone who traveled cross country on a motorcycle. And so this is going to be my journey through injury, surgery, and recovery within our medical system, and the trials, tribulations, and insights I encountered in this process, and how the three jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha have helped me to navigate this bumpy road with compassion and wisdom. Just a little bit of an upfront. I injured my shoulder about 1.5 years ago. And I tried to rehab it myself. Didn't go too well, still had a lot of pain in the shoulder, and felt weak and tired, hurt. So I decided to go see a doctor in May. The doctor did some tests, said to go get an MRI. Okay, got the MRI, came back. The rotator cuff in the shoulder consists of 4 tendon and muscle combinations to keep the shoulder in the joint. Well, 2 of mine were completely torn. So he suggested surgery. It wasn't going to get better by itself. So I did some research, talked to some people that had had the surgery before, and I peppered my surgeon with a whole bunch of questions about what could I expect after the surgery, what's the prognosis, etc. So I felt like I went through the right effort, the wise effort, to try and determine whether I really wanted to have the surgery, because it was optional. I could go without it. And ultimately, I decided, because I didn't want to have half a shoulder for the rest of my life, that I'd go ahead and have the surgery. So I scheduled it for the end of July. It's pretty major surgery. I was in a sling for 6 weeks. I'm sure many of you saw me in the summer going around with a sling. Couldn't do much. Physical therapy for about 4 months, and 6 to 12 months before I could have normal function of my shoulder. But because I scheduled the surgery so far out, I had some time before I actually had the operation. And I was finding that the closer the day came to having the surgery, the more doubts started forming in my mind about whether I wanted to go through with this or not. I started telling myself, well, the discomfort, disability, it really wasn't that bad. I could reasonably function in my life. Another thing going through my mind, I love to play golf. And I was really playing some great golf. And it's like, I don't want to give this up. I want to keep doing this. I found I was really becoming fixated on my fear. What if the surgery wasn't successful? What if I didn't have use of my shoulder afterwards? What if there were other complications to the surgery that impacted other parts of my health? If I didn't get full use of my shoulder again, I was thinking this would be a failure. My life would be adversely changed, and I'd be really pissed off about it, angry. And I realized that this attachment to the outcome, this expectation, was causing me suffering. It's causing me dukkha. And what I realized is I had to change my thinking about this whole situation. To look at the results of this surgery as actually, possibly being different rather than being good or bad. And the immediate result after the surgery may not be the final result, as there really is no final result because of the reality of impermanence. Everything changes. And another source of fear that I really had to face was reliance upon other folks to execute this procedure. The surgeon, the surgical team, nurses, everybody involved. A major situation over which I had absolutely no control. And I thought about the reality of interdependence. Have faith that this team of people that I've entrusted to help me will actually do so. And because I knew I was going to be in a sling for 6 weeks after this, and I am right-handed, and the surgery was on my right shoulder, I needed to prep to be able to survive. I had to practice doing basic life functions with my left hand, shaving, brushing my teeth, washing myself, etc. And realized through this process how much for granted I really took those things, how mindless I was in the execution of a large part of my life. And I could feel myself starting to get frustrated at how difficult these tasks were to start with, doing them with my offhand. And I started to get angry about it. But what I needed to start to do, and what I started to give myself once I realized this was happening, was some self-compassion to realize that, I could use patience and realize that I could learn these things at a moderate pace, that I wasn't going to be immediately an expert at doing all these things I did for one hand my whole life, automatically changing to another. And that gave me a little bit of peace of mind, relaxed me a little bit. And I thought, what do I need to hurry for? I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was going to be here. I was going to be at my house. Didn't have to go to work. Some other things I ended up doing was cooking a hell of a lot of food that I could stick in the freezer. Shopping for supplies, doing some, paying bills, stuff like that. Trying to have, wise mindfulness and actions prior to going in and having surgery. Another thing that came up is that I realized I had to ask for help. For the majority of my life, help was a 4-letter word that I can handle situations all by myself. Wrong. This was another real source of fear for me. What if I couldn't get help? What if people were not available to me? Some more dukkha, clinging to a projected outcome of a situation, fear. Again, I had to have compassion for myself, be vulnerable and ask people. And I found that my Sangha was available to me. A friend of mine took off work for the whole day to take me to the hospital, bring me home. My neighbor came over and she wrote checks for me to pay my bills because I couldn't write because I was right-handed. She brought me food, brought my laundry up and down the stairs. Other friends came over and visited me, brought me supplies. And I hired a cleaning service for my house. So I found out that I was taken care of and that I took care of myself. Again, it felt like really wise conduct on my part. So now we come to the day of the surgery. And I really had very little fear going into the situation into that event because I felt like I prepped myself very well. I did what I could, and the rest of it was out of my hands. And have faith. 2 hours later, I went home. It was successful. I was still alive, and I had all my limbs, 3 of which worked fine, and the other one didn't at that point. The first week after the surgery, although visually disconcerting, my arm was bruised and swollen. It was really quite a blessing. I had a nerve block prior to my operation, and what that meant was I could not feel my whole right arm afterwards. There wasn't really a lot of pain. I didn't have to take any narcotics, just Aleve and Tylenol, and I rented an ice machine to help with the swelling. I allowed myself to give myself a lot of self-compassion, sleep, rest, read, eat, watch movies, called friends, and I had company when I had the energy. I didn't do anything which required any effort or thought. I was in a sling, so I couldn't really do much. But after the first week, I found that people started going back to their own lives. They saw that I was going to survive. So they started doing other things, and the calls became less, and the people coming over became less, and I became lonely. And this was when my physical therapy started. And with all the exercise and things I had to do, life became more physically uncomfortable. The suffering started, not the pain, but the suffering, because I expected the remainder of recovery to be as easy as the first week was. I was attached to the thought of pushing away physical discomfort. I was kind of expecting what I considered a linear recovery with specific progressive gains in my healing and strength and mobility. Well, again, I was wrong on that. But I found that one of the real unexpected benefits that I experienced because of the pandemic was the onset of Zoom-based guided meditation groups, which I used to assist in redirecting my attention and attachment away from the idea of discomfort to the idea of difference. That concept really helped me in the acceptance of my condition as my recovery continued, because each day would bring a different physical feeling to my shoulder. Some days there'd be pins and needles, sharp pains. Other days there's soreness, and some days it just felt very neutral. Lots of fear I found came with my different feelings, that I might injure myself again. You know, my shoulder would always be painful. My shoulder would never be normal again. And I became aware that maybe a wiser course of thought would be realizing that the feelings in my shoulder were temporary, they were impermanent, and they were constantly changing, especially throughout the time that I was recovering. And again, I also told myself and realized that the overall condition of my shoulder may in fact be different than I remember prior to the surgery, and that different may or may not be undesirable, as my shoulder may end up functioning better than it did before. I don't know. As I mentioned, I had to wear an arm sling for 6 weeks. Physical therapy started a week after surgery, and basically for the first month, it was very passive. I couldn't do anything much because the shoulder needed to heal before I could do anything. And I found that after the sling was removed, the real therapy work began, because immobilizing your shoulder for 6 weeks basically means the muscles atrophy there. And there's a lot of joint stiffness also. I knew if I didn't do physical therapy, I wouldn't give myself the chance to recover fully. So I did. And my shoulder continued to feel physically different every single day. Again, I had to keep reminding myself the feelings were impermanent and they're all part of the healing process. Another thing I had to learn was the difference between discomfort in what I was going through and pain. I was so afraid of re-injuring myself doing my therapy that I would have a tendency not to push to the point of it being discomfort, to the point of it actually making progress in movement. And part of that, learning that difference, is to learn to trust the physical therapy team that I had to help me and provide guidance. Again, it was a reminder of interdependence. I didn't know all the answers. I didn't have all the answers. And I had to listen to those people who were entrusted with helping me. This independence has become very much more important because physical therapy has only gotten more difficult as my shoulder has recovered more, because they're asking me to do more with my arm. And some days I just don't want to go through with it. It takes about an hour or two per day for me to go through the exercise protocols. And then I have to go twice a week for them to do manipulation of my shoulder. Again, and this is a recurring theme in this recovery, I have to provide myself with even more compassion, to be easy on myself when the progress becomes a real struggle. Not to be perfect in trying to do all these exercises, but to be wise as to the effort I put into it. Some days I don't put as much effort into my physical therapy because my arm just doesn't feel up to it, and that's okay. I've come to realize also that the healing will come at its own pace, in its own time, in its own way. And I can be either a part of the problem by not doing physical therapy, by blowing it off, or I can be part of the solution by doing wise and compassionate physical therapy. And I've also found as my arm has become stronger with less pain, that wise mindfulness has become very important in order to not re-injure my arm by doing something I would automatically do in the past that I'm not able to do at present. For example, picking up heavy objects. And I got a reminder of this about 2 weeks after surgery, because I was doing something for my left shoulder mindlessly and ended up tweaking that. So I'm going to have to start therapy on my left shoulder. No surgery in about 2 weeks. I had decided as a result of this situation to take an extended leave, a medical leave from work, give myself enough time to heal. I have disability income insurance, which enabled me to do this. Initially, I was going to take about 2 months off, but I found that at the end of 2 months, my shoulder wasn't strong enough to go back. So I took another, excuse me, I took another month off. Again, example for me of the right mindfulness, wise mindfulness, being alert and observant of how my body is feeling and not trying to push it too fast. And I was with the 3 months I ended up taking off of work. I could have easily vegetated at my house doing nothing, being very resentful of the situation, but I decided to look at it and do things in a different way. I've learned to do morning meditations every single day. I do my physical therapy exercises. I've learned to start to learn how to play the xylophone. And as some of you may have received over the past 3 months, I love to bake. So I did a lot of baking. And so some of you in here may have gotten some of my goodies. And I was able to complete some continuing education stuff for work. In a nutshell, I was trying to continue with my life as a presenter. So to try and make lemonade out of what can be considered a lemon type of situation. Trying to use, wise attitudes, wise actions, and wise views to navigate this circumstance. I started to go back to work. I went back to work this past Monday. And I took a lot of time to pay attention to the fact that I would need time to ramp up, that I wasn't going to go from 0 to 60. I wasn't going to go from working, no work 3 months to being as productive as I was beforehand. So I allowed myself to ramp up, and I told work, don't give me too much right now. I need time to re-engage in this. And I needed to allow myself to rest this past week. I got tired very quickly. So I took naps, and I called people and talked to them about the frustrations I was going through, because there were. And I allowed myself to have patience, to remember some protocols that I might have forgotten, like passwords and stuff like that, because I didn't use them 3 months. Basically, in conclusion, the prognosis for my continued recovery is really good. Both the surgeon and the physical therapy team are really happy with the progress I've made. And I am too. I can move my arm a lot, and I would have never expected it to be this quick. But I certainly hope for anybody who's listening to this, and really anyone at all, I hope you do not have to have this type of surgery. It's not pleasant, and there is pain involved. But I can say that this repair and recovery journey has been made a lot easier to handle by using Buddha Dharma Sangha teachings in order to mitigate the pain elevating into suffering, to take the rest of the quiver and shoot them into me after this first arrow has been put. And I'm very grateful to the exposure to the truth of my life and how it's been able to help me navigate this particular situation. Please join me in Gasha. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots. Namo Amida Boots.
Thank you, Frank. During this part of the service, we participate in the ritual of shoko, traditionally the burning of incense. However, due to the interim policies of the board and the influence of the COVID virus, incense burning is not being allowed due to the handling of the incense pieces and the resultant smoke. We invite you to come to the front table to offer gaksho, and if you wish, place any dana, which is our offering of gratitude to Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha in the form of freedom. Please approach mindfully with safe distancing. Once you have finished, please return to your seats via the side aisles. Thank you. Sensei will now lead us in closing meditation and recitation of the Nambutsu.
Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
That concludes the service for today. We have just a few announcements. Ken,
Yeah, can I make an announcement also? For a few minutes of your time and your indulgence. I wanted to announce that we learned last night that a dear friend and longtime supporter and member of Ekoji passed away last night from cancer, Nora Murakami Nagatani. Nora has been a member of the temple almost from the day it began, and before that with the Dharma school. Her family and her kids have been active participants in the life of Ekoji. And for that, we're truly grateful. I know I joined many of her circle of friends who offer Gasho and deep gratitude for the opportunity to have known her and to be included in her circle of friends. Nora will truly be missed. Many of us. Thank you.
thank you, Ken. Also, Thursday evenings, meditation at 7:30. It is open to all. The annual meeting is coming up on Sunday, November the 14th. This will be via Zoom, and more information can be had on the website. All members are encouraged to participate. And lastly, the temple cleanup will be in 2 weeks on November the 7th. This will be on the same day that we have the time change. So we're going to be starting at 10 o'clock, I believe. And I think that's all the announcements. Anybody else? Thank you.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.